Hello and welcome to A Bettor Morning, presented by Rival Fantasy. I'm Heather Klein. Rival Fantasy is the all-in-one fantasy sports platform. Let's welcome today's panel. Host of Her Story in the Making, Britt's Fantasy Blitz, and co-host of Lightning Round, Britt Flynn. Award-winning host, the fantasy exec, Corey Parson. Head of content of Fantasy Alarm and award-winning host on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, Howard Bender. Welcome, everyone. How's your morning going so far?
Good morning. How's everybody doing? I'm just a nobody.
Oh my goodness!
Everybody feels Corey now. What's the matter?
Everything is fine. I'm just teasing. Everything is fine. I'm glad
you get up on the wrong side of the bed this morning.
No, actually, I didn't.
Do you need a hug, Corey?
No, I've already talked to Kennedy though, so she was awake this morning, or maybe she hasn't been to sleep yet. I'm worried about that.
Parental issues, man. Now I gotta go. Double check if that vasectomy appointment is ready.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah.
We have started the morning off fantastically, I tell you. All right, let's get it going. Is it deja vu? Justin Verlander is back in Houston. The reigning AL Cy Young Award winner rejoins his former team where he had huge success. The Astros also received cash for outfield prospects Drew Gilbert and Ryan Clifford. Verlander struggled to start the season but has posted a 1.49 ERA over his past 7 starts. Does the return of their ace give them a fighting chance to win back-to-back World Series? Britt, you're up first.
Yeah, I think that it absolutely does. And Verlander has to believe that it does too, to go back there, right? He had a no trade clause in his contract, and he actively chose Houston over LA, who was making very aggressive moves to go get him. The Astros are currently a wild card team, and while that doesn't sound that great, they're only a half a game back from the Rangers for the AL West lead. And the way Verlander has been playing lately, I really don't think that there's any way that they don't surpass them. The odds to win the division are now at negative 130, and the World Series odds have jumped from plus 850 to plus 700 in 15 hours. I mean, that's basically across the board. So if you're looking to get them at a value, I would place that bet today. Pairing Verlander with Valdez gives them 2 solid arms to lean on, and down the stretch, they're honestly going to be hard to beat.
Yeah. You see, here's the thing. I think you know how we get as sports fans. We kind of get tired. You know what I'm saying? Of the same teams, the same narratives, and stuff like that. But listen, you never underestimate the heart of a champion. And unfortunately, cheating and not cheating, the Houston Astros have proved to be Major League Baseball champions, and they're a championship team. Now, put that picture back up there. You know what I'm saying? Of Justin Verlander, right? Now, this guy, Verlander, is not a young man. If you examine his facial features, facial hair, body structure, you can tell he's up in age a little bit. You know what I'm saying? You can bring the camera back to me now. With that being said, I still think it's enough to put the Astros over the top, despite this gentleman being the same age as me.
Put that camera on Corey again. Look at how handsome that guy
stop
is.
His Howard. I'm just
Look at that. Look at that face, man.
I'm just
Come on.
Come on, Howard. Go ahead.
He's so handsome. He's so handsome.
Stop it.
I absolutely hate this deal for everybody else in baseball because Verlander back to the Astros does move the needle for them tremendously. I mean, listen, the Mets were just like a little way station, so you could make a little extra cash, go enjoy the Big Apple. Maybe Kate Upton's got, a couple of deals going on in New York or something like that. But now it's back to business and bring it to the Astros. We've heard the odds already. I still have my money on the Texas Rangers, but this definitely makes it a lot more difficult for teams in the American League because we've started to see things kind of level off. The Rays have pulled back. The AL East is not the AL East that we thought it would be. So, yeah, I think this makes it very, very tough for everybody else in the American League. And you could probably sprinkle some money on the Astros and see what happens for this playoff run.
Yeah, and their odds, I think, are at plus 350 to win the AL pennant. I mean, they're the odds-on favorites across the board. This trade just completely shattered everybody else's hopes and dreams. I know that you're
It
still on
didn't
the Rangers.
shatter. It
I
didn't
know that
shatter. Come on.
I know that you're on there, but I'm not a big believer in the Rangers. I just can't be. I can only have my heart in one Dallas team, and that's
There
the
you
Cowboys, not the Rangers.
No.
I agree.
We didn't just go there. We didn't just hit in that direction.
Hit my
Actually,
Cowboy
with
counter, guys.
The Texas
Cowboys,
Rangers,
Mavericks, Rangers.
the Texas Rangers lineup 1 through 6 was stout throughout the entire season. Yes, Corey Seager is banged up right now, but he's going to be back in a week or so. They've got great momentum. The key for the Rangers all year has been their offense, and that the 1 through 6 has been fantastic. Josh Young, Jonah Heim at the end of that, at the middle to the bottom of that order, that it didn't even matter what 7, 8, and 9 were doing because 1 through 6 was so powerful. Now they add a big lefty in Jordan Montgomery. They add themselves Max Scherzer, who, listen, whatever you want to say about Max Scherzer, I will put my money on a gamer like him with an attitude like his in the playoffs as a solid, number one ace on that roster. It's like plus 130 to win the division for the Texas Rangers. I've already dropped on plus 1,000 to win the World Series for them once they started making these trade deadline moves. Come on, Texas, please.
You're like, please. I think that having that 1-2 punch of Verlander and Valdez back to back, I think that's such a good starting rotation. And their bullpen hasn't been that bad either. So I wonder how much it's going to counteract the offensive firepower of the Rangers. I know I'm destroying your entire morning, Howard.
Right. Can we just all stare at Corey and make ourselves feel
All
better?
right, Howard, can we move on, please? Next question, next topic, please. Heather, get back in here.
Can we just raise a glass to both Corey and Britt for, agreeing on something about the Cowboys? This is a huge stride. I think we need to, mark this down as a historic moment in Bettor Morning.
No, I'm waiting for the meteor to come and
plays out.
Yeah, even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while, I guess.
Agreed.
Right, let's talk about like college sports or something like that and get these two banging heads against each other.
Right. Exactly. I thought this might be a spicy topic. Colorado announced they are leaving the Pac-12 and moving to the Big 12 in 2024. USC and UCLA are also leaving the Pac-12 and joining the Big 10 the same year. Rumors are that Arizona and possibly other schools will also leave for the Big 12, and there is also talk about Oregon and Washington becoming new members of the Big 10. Will the Pac-12 be able to survive with the departure of Colorado, USC, UCLA, and potentially Washington, Oregon, and Arizona? Corey, you are up first.
Yeah, this is going to be troubling for the Pac-12. To be 100% honest with you, they've lost 2 of their power schools. They've lost Deion Sanders. If I'm Arizona, I look at my basketball program and I say, I'm going to go join the Big 12 with Kansas as well. You can leave Washington and Utah there. I think Oregon is up in the air. The problem is they're going to this Apple TV streaming deal. It ain't going to work. You're basically going to become a regional sports network. The Pac-12 is going to basically turn into the Mountain West. I hate to say it like that, but there's really nothing to keep this conference together. Now, when you look at the landscape in college football, with everybody chasing these big TV deals, and that's like Colorado was a power program, but now they got a power player in Deion Sanders in their organization. So I think the Pac-12 is certainly in trouble.
Yeah, I think, listen, the time for individual conferences is probably going to just wear thin at some point or another. Everybody's going to absorb everybody else, and we're going to have 6 big conferences, and that's it. Everybody's going to end up with multiple divisions like the SEC does. It's about the money. It's all it is. It's 100% about the money. I had a hard time when the University of Miami joined the Big East. I was like, I don't even understand what's going on here. There's nothing regional about it. It's all about bigger school programs, bigger boosters, a lot more money, try to attract the athletes, try to attract the bigger TV deals. So, yeah, I mean, listen, I think the Pac-12 will find a way to survive, but maybe it's, absorbing like the Mountain West Conference or something like that, to merge and to kind of make it happen that way. But yeah, it's a shame, man. I used to love the Rose Bowl as the Pac-12 versus the Big Ten championship, but oh well.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to have that when half of the teams are going to the Big Ten, right? And I say half is an exaggeration, but no, I think the Pac-12 is toast. If Washington and Oregon were staying feasibly, they could add a team or two and just reform into like a West Coast conference, but they're going to have trouble fielding 2 divisions with the number of teams that they have. This conference realignment really doesn't make much sense. And honestly, I hate it for the fans. Think about how hard it's going to be for the fans to travel all the way across country to see some of their favorite teams play. And also think about the schools, how they're going to travel. Washington and Oregon are going to be traveling to Maryland at some point to play games. I mean, what's the point of conferences? It makes zero sense. It's harder on the student athletes who are there, lest we forget, to actually get an education. And they're going to travel cross country by bus. I mean, it's so stupid. It is a money grab, and I really hate it.
And then you talk about if Arizona does join the Big 12, that means they got to go to Morgantown. And you mentioned UCLA and USC having to every other year having to come all the way across the country to College Park. And how did Maryland get in the Big Ten anyway? The most egregious thing was the death of the Big East as far as the basketball school, but obviously football is king. But the thing that people need to pay attention to is Florida State. And if Florida State decides to leave the ACC, that could be a seismic shift where you could also see Clemson and what's the other football school, Miami, leave the ACC as well. And if I'm the ACC at this point, I go holler at those old Big East schools and try to form a power basketball conference. But Florida State is the key piece right now.
Where is Florida State looking to go? I guess I haven't seen that. SEC?
The Big Ten or the SEC.
Okay. Yeah, it's just nothing makes sense geographically anymore. And I think that it's very hard on the kids, which, again, ultimately they're there to get an education. A lot of these teams do travel by bus. And to hire air charter, it's upwards of $500,000 for one football season to get everybody back and forth. I mean, these smaller
all the Washington boosters have that money in their sock. They're like, here you go.
But I seen the bus for Georgia State up here a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, well, why would Georgia State be here? And I guess they had to play Claflin in golf. And I'm like, wow, they traveled 5 hours by bus for golf? That's crazy. You know what I'm saying? That's wild.
Yeah, absolutely. And you think about getting back and forth to class, especially with Washington and Oregon traveling all the way to Maryland. That's like a 2-day trip, round trip at bare minimum. Think about how much class these kids are going to miss. And then you factor in NIL deals with that. Like it throws a wrench in so many aspects of college football that it's not going to be very pretty when this all happens, which it inevitably is.
I weep for our educational system.
And them kids be all right.
Yeah, but we're not going to be when we're old and they're having to take care of us.
Yeah, that's true too, because all that traveling they did.
I'm hoping to be dead by then. Before all these kids are in charge of the world, please put me in the ground.
Oh my Lord!
You're starting to see that COVID time out from school starting to show his head too. You go through a drive-through, you be like, "This is nowhere near what I ordered." I'm sorry to the younger.
No, you're 1,000% right. You're 1,000% right. Like it's nowhere near it, and you're like, it's like, usually it's like 2 a.m. too. So you're like, whatever. I'll just eat it anyway.
Exactly.
They didn't cut my quesadilla at Taco Bell last night. I just had one large tortilla.
Hey, shout out to my homie Rel. Shout out to my God bless his soul, my homie Rel. One time after a night out, we went to McDonald's drive-through it, and I think the lady was like, "Your total is 75, 78. Drive around." That was a good night. That was my younger days. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know how that's even possible.
Oh, it's possible. I'm embarrassed. I'm turning beet red right now. It's 100% possible.
That's hilarious.
I'm so
The
sorry.
This is amazing. The Indianapolis Colts drafted Anthony Richardson with the 4th overall pick in this year's NFL draft. Gardner Minshew is the veteran presence and spent last season with new head coach Shane Steichen's offense. Obviously, the Colts want their rookie QB to start soon. But how should they handle Richardson's transition to the leader on the field? Howard, you're first.
Well, I know that I am in a major minority here when I think that the majority of college quarterbacks who come into the NFL should hold a clipboard for the first year and learn the offensive system, learn the speed of the game. There are obvious exceptions that you want in there, but for the most part, it's a much tougher transition than a lot of people think. You're going to stick Bryce Young and CJ Stroud into the mix there this year because those teams are bottom feeders. The Colts are trying to compete. The problem is that we knew Anthony Richardson had very raw skills, a cannon of an arm. And, listen, I think that, the comps made to, what he did in the combine and Josh Allen and how he came out of school. I think it's fine to let Richardson sit on the bench for a couple of weeks just to watch and see what happens. I don't think it'll happen because I think ultimately they'll just push him in there, but I'm perfectly fine with him just sitting and watching for a couple of weeks here.
Yeah, I normally subscribe to that same train of thought, but with all that's going on with Jonathan Taylor, the Colts are going to need Richardson's athleticism to actually run the ball. I think he might be their best chance. And I'm pretty sure that this morning that they announced that he was going to be the starter week 1. So if they're announcing that this early, I think that he's ready. From what I've seen of his training camp highlights, he's really not as much of a developmental prospect as we were led to believe during the scouting process. And his throws have looked so good. He's got some decently tough preseason games too against the Bills and Eagles. And yes, I know that it's their third stringers, but let's face it, even their backups are pretty good. So that should ease him into action a little bit, enough that he's ready for week 1 against the Jags. And it's going to be so interesting to see how they use him in the run game after all the drama with Jonathan Taylor and the injury to Zach Moss.
So that's a little bit of breaking news. I didn't see that this morning that he was named the week 1 starter. So listen, so he has doing good. Now I've seen some of the highlights too. That I think the release is not quick, but that's in shorts and t-shirts and we're seeing. But some of the passes also he's going to have to get out there quicker, and I'm sure they'll work on that. That was a knock against him coming into the season as well, or coming into the draft as well. But no, I think you play him immediately because here's the deal. You got Shane Steichen, you got Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor on the fast track. If you play Minshew, it's going to be the same as Matt Ryan and Phil Rivers. And you had some success with Phil Rivers. But now you get him out there and see what he can do. See, now here's the thing. For fantasy, how do we rank him? Because do you think he can have the season that Daniel Jones had last year? We can go to the 3 box for this. You know what I'm saying? And my thing is, if he can have the season that Daniel Jones had last year, 3,500 yards, 700 yards rushing, he'll probably score more touchdowns combined rushing and throwing than Daniel Jones did. So he probably is a top 12 fantasy quarterback.
I think so too. I was a little bit worried going into the year because, he didn't have a lot of starting experience at Florida, and we heard about him being a developmental prospect, but seeing what I've seen from him in training camp, plus the fact that he's bulked up to like 250, 255. I mean, this guy is a beast. And his passing yardage prop is 2599.5.
He's got to get over that.
He has to. And I think that, I think 3,000 bare minimum for passing yards, and then you tack on all that rushing ability, people are not going to be able to bring him down. In Florida, he was hit or miss. He would have some games over 300 passing yards and others around 150. But I think in this Colts offense with these weapons that he has and behind this line, he's going to succeed. I think that he should be in the top 12 conversation. All
right. I'm actually going to pit this to both of you guys. what is his floor and what is his ceiling? What do we think? I mean, is his floor Taysom Hill? Is his ceiling Daniel Jones last year? Where do we see Anthony Richardson kind of balancing out? If you guys could do like a player comp here, just for example.
I think Daniel Jones with more touchdowns is probably a good start because Daniel Jones can run that rock too. You know what I'm saying? And I think did Daniel Jones combine for just over 20 touchdowns last year? Mm-hmm. I think if Richardson can combine for over 30, then I think I like that. I don't know. What do you think, Britt? I don't do projections.
Yeah, I normally try to stay away from those. It makes my brain hurt because I overthink everything. But I think Daniel Jones might be his floor. And then we could see a ceiling of possibly last year's Justin Fields with his rushing ability. You know, he doesn't have to pass that much with what he's got on the ground game. And it all really depends. Everything hinges on what they do with Jonathan Taylor. If Jonathan Taylor ends up getting traded, which apparently several teams have inquired and made very serious trade offers about him, whatever happens in that running room, that is the linchpin of Richardson's ceiling versus floor.
See, I was thinking I think Taylor and Richardson is a package deal. Like you want them out there together. And yeah, you would hope, you know what I'm saying? Like I understand Jim Irsay is with all the drama. He don't care. But I think when cooler heads prevail, this agent is problematic with Jonathan Taylor. But I think Taylor wants to be there, and I think you get them two on I think it's going to be an intriguing offense with Taylor. Without Taylor, it might be ugly.
Somebody threw it to me about the possibility. It was like the Chargers send like a second-round draft pick and Austin Eckler to the Colts in exchange for Jonathan Taylor. And I was like, man, that's kind of like a dream scenario. I think Jonathan Taylor's like that Kellen Moore back that he wants. And Austin Eckler kind of fits with that whole, outside zone scheme, spread the defense out a little bit, run some RPO that Steichen wants to run there. Yeah, I agree with you guys that Anthony Richardson is a guy who has the capabilities of developing into a strong quarterback. I always just worry about the fact that, we see him in camp right now, but you know what? Put defensive ends running around on him. Remember? I mean, it was like, it was like the combine was absolutely fantastic. And we started seeing, remember, like images of Zach Wilson throwing across his body and all the way downfield to like an uncovered receiver who's wearing gym shorts. I mean, it's like, so what are we taking from Anthony Richardson's performance right now? Because I mean, listen, that's what we're inundated with over on social media right now, are all just these hype camp videos. Nobody's showing me a picture of a wide receiver dropping a football, right? We're only seeing all of these like, oh man, this looks amazing. This looks amazing. Show me a series of like, these are mistakes that Anthony Richardson has made so far, and this is him correcting those mistakes. That'll impress me.
I see some Dak mistakes though.
Well, there you go.
You guys
have a terrible team and a terrible quarterback.
All right, let's move
on. Our guest on Morning Fantasy Football, on Alarm Fantasy Football, is going to be Corey Parson as we talk about Dak Prescott. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that to him.
Now it's time for Dealer's Choice. Give us your bet of the day. It could be on any topic and any sport. Britt, you're up.
Yeah, today I'm going to kind of grab some low-hanging fruit. I'm going to go with Juan Soto to have over 0.5 home runs at plus 270 against Kyle Freeland. Everything flies out of Coors Field, and Soto had 2 huge homers last night, one of which was 455 feet. Freeland has allowed 17 home runs in 20 starts, and Soto's one of the best home run hitters in the league. I think he's tied for 16th. If he can't get a home run tonight, I'm going to have to seriously evaluate some things because he's in a prime spot to do it. As I said, it is low-hanging fruit, but I think it's as sure of the home run bet as you're going to get today.
Yeah, at plus 270, I might find that and go ahead and tail that one myself. I really came in here unprepared with a wager, but what I will say is this: when I saw the topics, I said I'll hop on the Colts over 6.5. But I'll take that Anthony Richardson passing yards over 25.99. I think that right there is a slam dunk. That sounds good to me. And I really don't bet season-long prop wagers like that. But I think that's a solid look right there. I think that young man will definitely at least have 2,600 yards passing. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do. I was looking at some to make the playoff wagers. And I seen where BetMGM sent email out this morning about how their books look. A lot of people are on the Pittsburgh Steelers to miss the playoffs at minus 175. That's a sucker's bet. Don't do that, Joe.
Wow. You know what? Before I even give my bet here, I just want to know from Britt and Corey, would you rather have Dak Prescott or Anthony Richardson as your Cowboys quarterback this year?
Actually, at the end of the year.
No, come on, man. I'm seeding quality time here for you guys.
I would take Dak this year.
Okay, Britt?
I would Dak.
Okay, I'm just checking. Checking. Take the Washington Nationals plus 114 on the money line today. Mackenzie Gore on the bump for the Nats. I just don't believe in these Brewers. I don't think they made enough moves to kind of bolster that lineup. I mean, come on, you're adding Carlos Santana. You know, he's still a 230 hitter. Brewers have struggled against left-handed pitching all season long, striking out 26.6% of the time against left-handed pitching. I just don't see them holding their own, during this stretch run here. They might fend off the Reds, but overall here, I think that this could be a big loss for Milwaukee today. Give me the Nats plus 114 on that full money line. Also, Brewers bullpen has been recently.
Hey, Howard, listen to this right quick. This is Brian Cashman yesterday. I'm sure some people out there say tear it down and sell, and other people out there saying to add something big. There wasn't a big thing to add, to be quite honest. That was going to have to solve. There was nothing that was going to solve the immediate problems we have. In terms of sell stuff, there's certainly a lot of players that are talented that playoff teams would like to get their hands on. He sounds like he's saying we're not a playoff team.
It does sound like he's saying we're not a playoff team. And you know what? The lack of movement at the trade deadline, even like beyond a tweak deal, would they pick up like a middle reliever in there? So yeah, dude, I'm worried about my Yankees, and I kind of wouldn't mind tearing it down to build it back up. You can't do that in New York, but I wouldn't mind.
Too big to fail. The Yankees are too big to fail.
Too big to fail. Yeah, they should be in the SEC conference.
The Alabama Yankees.
All right. One thing I do want to just chime in here before we get on out of here, folks, the Fantasy Alarm NFL cheat sheet. Go buy it. FantasyAlarm.com/cheat sheet. You know, it's everything that you need for your draft day. You don't want to be sitting there shuffling through papers and stuff like that. Trust me. Rankings, draft grid, everything you could possibly want. FantasyAlarm.com/cheat sheet. I love sneaking that in.
Thank you, Howard. That was today's edition of A Bettor Morning. Thank you to Corey, Britt, and Howard. Make sure you check out Quick Out Fantasy Football with John and Pemba and our very own Howard Bender. Have a great day, everyone, and thank you for